annual global conference and the first time we're doing a conference in Europe. We're going to get started momentarily, so if I can call up the panelists for this first panel. Heinrich, Liz, Tim, Joe, Al, and Helen, please come to the stage. Thanks.
Okay. Yep, it's good. About that one.
Thank you.
It's live.
You've got the video. Live stream. German World Beyond War.
Okay, I think we are all situated up here on the stage. Good morning and welcome to you all. I am so happy to see you here. As Greta said, this is our 4th annual international conference for World Beyond War. Our first 2 were held at American University in the United States. Our 3rd one was in Toronto, Canada. And here is our 4th one in Europe. And we are hoping to continue to have our conferences every year around the world. And next year is going to be in Ottawa, Canada. So I hope you'll think about coming up to Canada and being a part of that with us as well. So I'm interested to know how many people here are from Ireland. A good bit of you, okay. And yes, thanks for coming. How many of you are here are not from the United States or Ireland? Wow.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, tell me the countries here. I know we have Iran, we have Japan, what else? Canada, Switzerland, New Zealand, Germany, Spain, Sweden, yeah, okay. So it just shows you, and it's really exciting to have people involved from so many places. And we know it's going to take an international effort to end war. So this is great to see such a turnout. Now everybody can't be here, but they can watch the program via live stream, or they can watch the videos that will be posted to the Facebook page and the YouTube page of World Beyond War. You need to follow the hashtag NoWar2019. It's NoWar2019, all one word. And we'll be posting to Twitter and to Facebook, and we'll have the videos for you this evening. So I hope everybody will do that. And if you are at all savvy with your camera and you would like to post to Twitter, or we would love to have everybody taking their own pictures and live tweeting and all that stuff. Okay, so my name is Leah Bolger. I am the president of World Beyond War, and our organization is a little over 5 years old. It began when David Swanson, who is a very prolific author, wrote a book called War No More, The Case for Abolition. And the book was read by David Hartsoe, who is a lifelong Quaker peace activist. And David Hartsoe talked to David Swanson about the idea of forming some sort of network or movement or entity that would address the institution of war, the war itself, and not just the war of the day. And find a way to figure out some way to replace the way that the world is, that conflict is resolved today. And they also knew that it had to be an international effort, and so that's why we're working so hard to increase our membership throughout the world. A moment ago I saw a slide there that showed the map of where we have membership around the world. It's in 175 countries we have members. And you know, to me, that is so exciting to understand the potential for organizing that kind of number represents. There are truly people around the entire world who agree with our mission. If you have not signed the Declaration of Peace, you still have many chances to do that. You can do that at a registration table. If you're watching this live stream or video, go to the World Beyond War website, WorldBeyondWar.org, and please sign our Declaration of Peace pledge. Okay, today is sadly the 18th anniversary of the American war on Afghanistan. And you know, this is a war that never seems to end, and it's part of the global war on terrorism. We know that war itself is terrorism. So we obviously have a lot of work to do. But on a brighter note, this is also the 150th birthday of Mahatma Gandhi. So we can use that kind of positive power to help us. Let's see. Okay, thank yous. We would love to thank the hotel here has been really wonderful in helping us get set up and rooms and everything. So we'd like to thank the hotel. And we'd like to thank our sponsors, Uniting for Peace, Comitato Nazionale No Guerra No Negro. How did I do with the accent? Was that pretty good? Yeah. Okay. Voices for Creative Nonviolence, Thomas Bissiger, and the Arkansas Coalition for Peace and Justice, and rootsaction.org. And I would like to thank personally Barry Sweeney, who is our Irish resident on the ground, who's Barry's going to tell you a little bit more about the details and how we're going to be operating today. So Barry?
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Welcome to Limerick. I'm delighted to see all these friendly faces here. I'm delighted to have finally met so many of my World Beyond War colleagues. I've been 3 years with World Beyond War now, and it's been a lot of telephone calls and videos, so it's been nice to meet some people in person. So I'm really looking forward to the weekend. I'm very excited for what's ahead of us. This first little panel is for the chapter coordinators to give you an idea of what's been going on, what they've been doing in their area over the last year. I am not going to do that because tomorrow on the very final panel I will be talking about Ireland, the days and months ahead. So we'll be talking about the initiatives here in Ireland tomorrow. I specifically really wanted to highlight the participatory nature of the conference. Like, I know we have all you guys here, we have people watching on live streaming, and we will have people, they will be up on YouTube. You might be watching this in January 2020, you know. So there are many different people watching this, and there are many different ways for getting involved. Like, if you're here now today and you're listening to a panel, we have question cards over.
In 2018, we organized World Beyond War events in Berlin, live video streaming the conferences that took place at the same time in Washington, D.C. twice, and in Toronto, Canada last year. In 2015, we were able to meet the World Beyond War co-founder David Hartlow when he visited Berlin. At the Anti-War Café, we participate in and organize several initiatives, petitions, exhibitions, meetings, etc. We support the campaign against the US base in Ramstein. Some of our friends, at least, at the café do. I have never been there in person. And we support the Berlin Easter Peace March, always bringing our World Beyond War banner. We organize an Aufstehen or stand-up meeting every week since a year now at the Anti-War Café, a relatively new cross-party movement founded by left politicians and Greens in Germany to unite left and progressive groups against the danger of a growing right-wing movement. Aufstehen Berlin Mitte, which I represent at the café, together with World Beyond War, just recently published an appeal in both English and German with the title "Germany Must Not Join the War-Making Nations of the World, a call to stop Germany from supporting an anti-Iran coalition that could mean finally war." 6,500 people and groups from Germany and the US have signed the appeal. Currently, we also are planning a poster campaign for May 2020. The 9th of May 2020 will mark the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Berlin by the Red Army and the end of World War II. 60 million people died in the Second World War. Almost half of them were citizens of the Soviet Union. We have raised so far 6,000 euros in donations for more than 1,000 large-sized posters titled Peace with Russia, with an image that is quite impressive of the Brandenburger Gate with a dead German soldier in front, and marking websites, info websites, and a link to World Beyond War. Over the last years, we have put up thousands of these posters ourselves and distributed many flyers. We organize also a jam session with the title Peace with Russia every Friday night at our cafe. Every Wednesday, we organize a free Assange event in front of the US Embassy in Berlin with speakers, sometimes politicians. Actually, this week we had a very special guest at our vigil, John Shipton, the father of Julian Assange. We took a photo with Julian's father and the World Beyond War banner, and we told him about this very important conference here in Ireland. Every Saturday, we organize a Hands Off Venezuela event in front of the US Embassy. I'm the admin of the web page at the shop. Again, speakers, live music. For the 19th of October, we invited David Rovich from the US to play at the event. David also did a concert in 2016 titled World Beyond War. As the Venezuela Solidarity Group in Berlin, this May we co-organized an event together with the only German left daily newspaper Junge Welt at a very large event venue featuring international guests, including the Vice Foreign Minister from Venezuela. Also with World Beyond War material up there to distribute it to the people. Currently, we organize also an initiative together with Margaret Flowers and Kevin Zees from Popular Resistance in the US, who were part of the Embassy Protection Collective in the Venezuelan Embassy in Washington, D.C. Together, we have published the Global Appeal for Peace, an appeal to protect international law and the Charter of the United Nations. The appeal is supported by 1,500 people and organizations from various countries. Some of the signers are also present here in the room. And at the same time, it is promoting the idea of the Non-Aligned Nations movement, NAM, a movement of more than 120 countries that are backed by both Russia and China. They are supporting Venezuela and all other nations targeted by Western interventionism and warlike sanctions. You can find an ad for the event for the website at the booklet of this conference. We very much appreciate the fact that David Swanson and World Beyond War have supported quite a few campaigns we started in Berlin. All this shows that there are ways to interconnect national anti-war groups on an international level. This way, World Beyond was able to muster 75,000 people and 500 organizations from more than 175 countries supporting the very concept of a world beyond war. On Monday night, I will take part in a panel in Berlin organized by the International Peace Bell Society in connection with the Uranium Film Festival that we as a coalition in Berlin are hosting once a year. We always take part as members of the International Coalition to Ban Uranium Weapons, EQ. On Monday, I will also make this World Beyond War conference an issue at that event, especially on the backdrop of a recent article on depleted uranium by David Swanson. If you do an online search for Berlin anti-war, you will find many articles, posts, images, and videos about the World Beyond War project in Berlin and more activities. From all my international activist friends in Berlin, I want to remit our message of solidarity to the conference in Ireland, to the organizers, and to all participants. Thank you.
So our next speaker will be Liz Remmerswaal, who is our
It's okay,
New
you
Zealand
figured it out.
chapter coordinator.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Can you hear me? No.
Get closer.
I don't think it's working.
It's working.
It's on, but you really have to.
Hello. Hello, hello.
Yes.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Rangi Mario. Good morning, everybody. I bring greetings from everybody in New Zealand, which is a home of peace, Aotearoa, very, very far away, with the tradition of Te Whiti o Ronamai, of the non-violent culture of the Chatham Islands, and of all the people who have worked for peace for a very long time, including those who worked towards the nuclear weapons ban in 1987 and stood up to the United States.
Go nearer to the microphone.
Okay. I've been involved in World Beyond War for a couple of years, and before that I was involved with Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. And a big part of my role as chapter coordinator in World Beyond War, and I'm also
together, we're adding our energy to the growing movement to outlaw war. My name is Tim, and I'm the World Beyond War chapter coordinator in Asturias, Spain. I'd like to mention we just started in January, and today I see 3 staunch supporters of this new chapter in Spain attending this conference.
Yeah.
We started our quarterly meetings in January of this year with 3 people. And currently we have a signatory membership of 22.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. World Beyond War, or WBW, encourages 3 areas of focus for chapter activities. Number 1 is working to close U.S. military bases around the world. Number 2, to decrease spending on war. And number 3, to work on peace education. Our chapter decided to focus initial efforts on peace education. Education is the fertilizing of the soil and the soul. Education is planting seeds. It's something that you and I can do together. We can continue to educate. In the face of daunting odds, very daunting odds, we can continue to educate. So far, Spain has educated about the organization and purpose of World Beyond War. We offered a look at some of the hidden costs of war, and we've helped clarify how Spain supports war by acquiescing to the insidious and constant pressure from the United States to purposefully increase worldwide violence and aggression for economic gain. World Beyond War's David, Greta, and Tony, who's not here, have incorporated some great, very easy to use educational tools on the World Beyond War website. Their efforts provide momentum for us to educate in Spain, and they support us along the way as well. We in Spain are very appreciative. 2 other activities in which we participated were to help produce and record the audio version of one of the World Beyond War's books entitled A Global Security System, an Alternative to War, and to help translate a shorter version of that same book into Spanish. We're also working closely with Veterans for Peace to start the first chapter in Spain, Veterans for Peace. If you haven't started or joined a World Beyond War chapter where you live, I encourage you to do so. It's really easy to do. And the same passion that brings us here today shines a light on whatever path we choose to follow or to create. It was once said that there is some magic in starting a new project. Make some magic. When you go home, think about getting involved or starting a World Beyond War chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Now we will hear from Joe Essertier, who is our chapter coordinator in Nagoya, Japan.
Thank you very much. I live in Japan, but I'm from the United States. I grew up in Southern California, and I've been, for almost all of my adult life, I have lived in the only country of the world that has a peace constitution, where war as a means to settle international disputes has been outlawed for 7 decades. During my time in Japan, I have never, not even once, been threatened with violence. I've had the pleasure of living day by day with an amazing sense of physical security, free from the worry of being mugged, or shot at, or punched in the face. I have often even heard the very word violence, boryoku, spoken as something hideous, a kind of savage act that only a thug would resort to. Meanwhile, the government of my own country, not Homeland Security, it's not security, where I have good friends and family, is now widely, if not universally, recognized as the greatest threat to peace in the world. A threat led by a soulless man who was told by his father to be a killer, who was put in power by a broken electoral system. A man who is now implementing the whims of the most destructive political party in human history. As that great nonviolent freedom fighter, Dr. King, who was a student of Gandhi, whose birthday is today, once said, "I cannot be silent. No way can I remain silent." Consider what our government and our people did to Japan. The unnecessary and cowardly firebombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the sexual violence against and the murders of at least hundreds of the women and children of Okinawa during peacetime. This peacetime, this violence perpetrated against the very people who we are supposed to protect. But then it's always been about projecting force in Asia, hasn't it? It's about projecting, not protecting. And of course, to rub salt in the wound, the construction and maintenance of these polluting bases are almost completely paid for by Okinawans and Japanese. They are paying for the destruction of their beautiful and vital ecosystems in order to serve U.S. military interests. And yes, that old fantasy of the so-called open door policy. American journalists are silent about the daily injustices that Okinawans endure, and that must change. But also next year will be the last chance for the survivors of the nuclear bombings to have their voices heard, as several hundred of them gather in New York to deliver an appeal to the United Nations and the world to abolish nuclear weapons so that our species may yet live and thrive. That will be a good opportunity for us who are U.S. citizens to apologize. Since Obama, no slouch when it came to supporting U.S. imperialism, was happy to get a Nobel Peace Prize as long as he didn't have to live up to it. Shame on him. He went to Hiroshima, made some empty speeches that many Japanese bought into, and then went home to immediately commit our country to $1 trillion in investments in more useless nukes. Now, more concretely, what is WorldBeyond War doing in Japan? We're working on U.S. bases in Okinawa. Americans are beginning to drift back to reality, seeing that these bases are stupid, costly, and unnecessary. We'll help them keep drifting back to reality. So I'm involved with the anti-base movement. That's probably my primary activity once a week on Saturday nights. We have demonstrations in Nagoya. Then just recently this summer, this statue was reminders of the horrors of war reinstated. So thousands of Japanese will have a chance to learn their history. Later this month, Veterans for Peace will be telling people about Washington-sponsored sexual violence perpetrated by U.S. soldiers on battlefields and on and near bases. And we'll be helping Veterans for Peace with that. The mass media has been giving people in Japan the false impression that Japan is under attack. This is another thing we're working on. Is under attack from the outside, especially from Koreans. Xenophobia against both Koreans and Okinawans is getting worse, and it's as bad as I've ever seen it. The racism, this fear, this like irrational fear of Koreans and also Okinawans is getting worse, and so we are going to continue to resist that. Our brothers and sisters from Korea and Okinawa have been excellent agents of democracy and peace, and so we want to support them in every way we can. Military spending in Japan has been going up steadily, like in Russia, China, and Korea, but activists in Japan have recently staged a rally against the weapons market, or expo that was held there this year. It's a new thing in Japan. Japan was not allowed to sell weapons until, I can't remember, maybe the year before last. So World Beyond War is underlining, World Beyond War, I think as a global movement, is underlining the fact that through the slightest decrease in military spending, we can feed all the hungry people in the world. And Japanese activists are leading similar campaigns already in Japan. And so I'm hoping that we can link up with them on that. So, okay, then finally I just want to say there's an ethical principle that good, sincere, peace-loving Japanese have taught me over the years through their actions more than through their words. And that is very simply that one good turn deserves another. So I have determined that I will repay my debt to Japan by becoming an agent of peace, a builder of peace, so that future generations can enjoy this precious feeling of peace and security, something that very few Americans ever have experienced, actually. This feeling of peace and security that I have experienced and enjoyed, a treasure that I have received that I will never forget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Our next speaker is Mytty, who is our Central Florida Chapter Coordinator from the Villages, Florida.
Thank you. Is this on? No. It's on now. All right. Thank you, Greta. My name is Mytty. I live in a place called the Villages, Florida, which is a very large retirement or active adult community. It consists right now of 120,000 people, and it's growing to 250,000 people. Sumter County, Florida, has the oldest median age in the United States. It's a place that's very pro-military and pro-militarism. It was the place that Trump visited 2 days ago, so I was glad to be in Ireland and not there. But if you go online, you can see old people protesting the presence of Donald Trump in the Villages, Florida. We have, needless to say, a lot of old people there. We also have a lot of brain power and a lot of experience, and professors and Nobel Prize winners, and a lot of resources to draw upon. So I get excited about the knowledge base that we have there. I'm also pleased that we have two other chapter members here. Jim and Jewel McCormick are sitting right over there, so we are a chapter from the U.S. with 3 people here. Our chapter meets monthly, and we focus almost entirely on education. Past topics that we've had at our meetings include the research by Erica Chenoweth and Maria Stefan on the effectiveness of violence versus nonviolence. We did a session on the employment effects of spending on the military versus alternative energy and education and healthcare, and I think as a lot of you would know that we would be far better off putting our resources into alternative energy in terms of job creation or healthcare or education than we do wasting it on the military. We did a session recently on sanctions. Economic sanctions is another form of warfare. We did a session on the debate that David Swanson had with a former West Point professor on whether war is ever justifiable. This month our topic will be a video presentation by Leah Bolger on the horrors of drone warfare. So those are the kinds of things we do. We also, in the villages, we have 3,000 different clubs. So I spend a lot of my time doing presentations at those clubs on topics of war and peace and alternatives to war. We are really excited that in January, World Beyond War co-founder and Nonviolent Peace Force founder David Hartzell will be visiting the villages. So we are very actively and aggressively promoting that event and hope that we will fill the room and that people will be there to hear his story of his lifetime story of activism. Our little organization has grown from a few of us to now we have at least an email list that's almost 180 people. We don't get 180 people at our meetings, but we often get 40 people or 30 people there. We are in the process of also forming a Veterans for Peace chapter and getting that going because we have 18,000 veterans living in the villages. That's going to take some work for us to get to all of those veterans and get our word out, get the word out. I want to thank David Swanson and Greta for all of the support they provide to us. The resources they have and make available to us as a local chapter are very important and help us a lot. So thanks to both of them.
Thank you, Al. And our last chapter coordinator today is Helen Peacock from the South Georgian Bay chapter in Ontario, Canada.
And I'll start by saying I'm Canadian, so I always say, you take the chair, you take the chair, you take the chair. It's Canadian way. Does anyone know where South Georgian Bay is? Oh, yay, one person. So it's about an hour and a half north of Toronto in Canada, and I think there's something really exciting happening there. We're actually an incredibly young chapter. We had our first meeting at the end of June. And I was hoping that 12 people would be in that meeting on an honor. That's not going to happen. The meeting will go and end in an hour. So we've been doing that. We also decided that we were going to get 700 people in South Georgian Bay to sign the Peace Pledge. Why 700 people? Because that's approximately 3.5% of the population of Collingwood, Ontario, which is the town that we live in. And we thought we'll be a little incubator for what we learned from Erica Chenoweth about the 3.5%. So we'll do that. And we had at that point, I don't know, 12 signatures or something at that point, but we were going to go for 700. And our third idea was September 21st was World Peace Day, International Peace Day. Why don't we put on an event? Why not for International Peace Day for our town and see what happens? And we just were bold. I heard someone in a podcast say, just be bold. So we were bold. We were going to do this. And at first we thought, we'll put it on the community center, maybe we can fit in 60 people, that'll be great. But by 2 weeks later, I found myself with 2 other people sitting down with the Legion, the Collingwood Legion, to see if they wanted to partner with us to put on this event. And I mean, nobody says no to world peace, and you can't find a veteran who doesn't come back and isn't pro-peace. So in the end they agreed, what more fitting place than that could we possibly do? And then we produced these flyers for the event. And on this side, that's Georgian Bay, and that gives you a picture of how beautiful it is. It says, it only takes a ripple to create a wave. May the ripple begin with us. And on this side, it talks about International Peace Day and the dancing and the entertainment and the inspiration that we want to provide for that evening on September 21st. And we papered the town of Collingwood, the 20,000 people, with 1,000 of these pamphlets. And we thought, at least now we're putting it on the radar screen. It's planting a seed. And maybe 2 weeks before the event, the pamphlets were all gone. So we printed 500 more and repapered the town with these pamphlets. And who knew how many people would show up for the event, but people had taken these pamphlets and were thinking about it. And that was our hope. So then the event comes. We have an indication that about 80 people are going to come. We expect attrition rate of about 10%, so we're hoping for 70. We set the room up so that it can accommodate as many as 100, and 110 people came. Could have been 120, we're not sure. So we were absolutely thrilled. They came and they were all excited, and they were all pumped and really, really curious. Now, I had a presentation that I've been giving. I've given it to a Rotary group and a few other groups in our area, and it really sort of brought home the impact of war on our planet, the fact that there have been 250 wars since the Second World War. My organizing committee for this event, the 8 of them, hammered me over the head and said, you can't do that. This has to be an inspirational evening, and you want people to be leaving, like, inspired. And so, although we didn't call the talk this, the talk was basically, the world needs more Canada. Because we are number 6 in the International Peace Index for peaceful countries. But the 5 countries ahead of us are very small. We have 37 million people in Canada, and we embrace the multicultural values that I think we want worldwide. And people were just inspired. I don't think anyone could have been happier with how the evening went. So we're on a roll. I honestly don't know where it'll go. If you told me a year ago that I'd be standing here talking to you now, I would have thought, no. But I don't know where we'll be this time next year. I do know that there are a lot of us who did not know about CanSec, which is the largest North American expo for supplies to the military. And so I think there'll be a lot of us showing up in Ottawa next year for the conference next year. So it's exciting. And for those of you out there thinking about becoming a chapter coordinator, I can't, do it, just do it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Helen. And that concludes our first panel. Our next panel is starting at 10 o'clock, so in a couple of minutes, right here in the same room. And this panel will be Nonviolence, the Foundation of Peace, moderated by Pat Elder. Thanks.